Let's get some public comment on this issue. Mr. Minton and then Mr. Gardner. And ladies, if there are any other requests to speak on this issue. No? Okay. Mr. Minton.
Good afternoon. Jonas Minton with the Planning and Conservation League. Also a member, except there is no membership, of the Coalition to Support Delta Projects, that ad hoc group. Last time I was...
You would be a member, were there members, and there aren't, but you're still participating in the process.
I can't tell you that.
Okay.
We have had a chance to touch base with Chris and Dan and Carl and Jessica to apprise them of what we've done since the last time we've been here. But let me bring you all up to speed as well. You pressed us hard. Where are your priorities? Where are your priorities? And we rejected that approach. We were not going to tell people what their priorities were. Instead, what people have done is gone around and listened. We've asked. Coming to this meeting, golly, what was that long discussion about some island, McCormick Williamson? Seemed to be there's some interest in that. And that's what we've done. So with respect to the co-equal objectives and Delta's place, a couple of projects just seem like they're getting real ripe to finally move. Maybe they've been around for a while, years, or in some cases decades, but perhaps it's time for a broad-based group of stakeholders to provide support, and then some things I can suggest for you to do to move these along. But what are these kinds of projects? Water supply reliability, blah, 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 blah. What's that mean? Well, what we did is we got in a couple of cars and drove down to the Delta. Who's we? Metropolitan, Reclamation District people, Delta people, and we drove along a place called Middle River and said, there's some opportunities for some improvements to levees here. What's the problem statement for that? Well, if the levees break, it's really a bad thing for the land uses as well as for the conveyance of water to the South Delta. Keeping in mind that one of the caveats for all of the projects that we support is that they make sense with or without any future changes to conveyance, changes to your plan, and so forth. But golly, it'd be really bad if those break. We don't have to do more studies to know that Middle River is important. Now, what's going on? As we speak, Metropolitan has consultants engaged looking at the specific segments of levees on the islands along Middle River. How can those be made earthquake resilient? Not earthquake proof, but earthquake resilient. Bend, not break. If they overtop, they don't totally fail, so you can do that. This is important not only to gather the scientific information, but who's going to pay for this? The Department of Water Resources has some funding remaining under Prop 1E, but it requires beneficiary pay. Traditionally, and Don knows this, that okay, there's cost sharing up to how much? Well, the locals would go to a standard called HMP or something like that. But we really need, I think there's consensus that for levees along Middle River, they need to be much stronger, earthquake resilient. Okay, where's that money going to come from for the local cost share match? It's got to be somebody like Metropolitan or other urban agencies. They've expressed an interest in that. A couple of other projects that seem pretty logical. One that's not on our list, but I think we're going to invite them to come in, Prospect Island, purchased in 1994 for restoration. To Randy's point, is something actually being done? I'm told that maybe last week fishery agencies, or within the last couple of weeks, fishery agencies are getting together trying to figure out, okay, with the Department of Water Resources that owns the island, okay, how do we move ahead? Where would you breach levees? How do you protect adjacent lands against seepage damage and so forth? We know Dutch Slough is out there. So there are a couple of things that really rise to the top. We don't have to do a lot of prioritizations. Come on, just listen to what everybody's working on and coming in with. For Delta's place, one that just strikes me as an individual is the emergency preparedness. Some work has been done, some improvements have been made, but if we have a catastrophic earthquake event, we're going to say we didn't do enough. And so going back, as all of the priorities are important as Delta's place, but not being able to respond to foreseeable emergencies seems like a big lack. Another thing that we're doing, and requests that we're getting, You've probably heard this as well. There's renewed interest now with the passage of Prop 30 into relooking at a water bond for future ballot. And folks are saying, okay, we know it's got to be rewritten. What sorts of things make sense? And boy, if we only had a list of kinds of projects that could be amalgamated into programs for funding. So we are participating in that with others. We think there's a lot of good work that can be done. What can you do? Okay, we're telling you we've got broad support for a big list of projects. We know there's not going to be $1 billion in the governor's budget. That ain't going to happen. So there's some that people want to work on. What you did earlier is what you can do. That message you're sending out on McCormick Williamson tract. Bring your resources, your science program, saying, hey, we're ready. We'll get you a room. We'll bring you in. We really think this is worth pursuing. It's not as though those agencies don't want to do it. I mean, we're sort of, we were living in an age where, oh, there's this impediment and that impediment and so forth. What I'm hearing is that has changed significantly. People want to do some projects now, including the permitting agencies. You can look around and there are people say, yeah, we want to start moving those projects. So your encouragement, your bringing resources, I think can make a big difference and actually you can't identify specific projects and put them in your plan. We get that. You got EIR issues and so forth. But you can certainly invite anybody who's ready with projects to come in and loan them resources, contribute resources to getting those permitted, funded, and built. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Minton.